review of Raw. I'm John Pollock, along with Wei Ting, where we're going to take you through Raw from Monday night in the vacation capital of the world, Omaha, Nebraska.
Have you been?
No, never. Not even driven through.
It might be nice. The only reason I would even know about Nebraska.
Becky Donaldson.
Exactly. I'm not even joking.
Their only claim to fame.
Becky Donaldson from Full House is the only reason. I can't believe you said that.
Well,
there's nothing else. I know they have a football team of some sort.
Most do in the States.
Yeah. I know they probably love their football there, but I don't know anything else about Omaha. Oh, you know the band 311?
Yes.
They're from Omaha.
Okay.
Yeah, so Becky Donaldson and 311.
Wow, is that so?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of that group 303. Remember them? They were out of Cleveland.
No. What's that?
Area codes. What a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it.
Uh-huh.
Well, this edition of Raw, was it fitting for Omaha's reputation?
What is it, like a flat show? I imagine Omaha to be very flat. And, I don't know, boring, I guess.
This was every bit of 3 hours. That's what I'm going to say. They're trying,
3 hours
folks.
and 11 minutes.
Did you know this is the new era? That thing was only said about 28 times on this show.
So we have the Attitude Era. I guess with the new generation was sort of like the first time they decided to brand. Oh, okay, we got the Rock and Wrestling era, okay?
Which was hardly said by the actual performers.
But the new generation was something that they actually branded.
That was something they tried.
Attitude. And then what was it? Like, at the
Ruthless Aggression.
Yeah, they tried that.
They had some awful ones.
Yeah. And they haven't really branded too much of their eras.
You know, when you just pull it out of a box, the Attitude Era sounds so stupid.
It does.
Let's coin we're the Attitude Era.
In hindsight, it kind of makes sense, though. You know, I mean, I didn't think it was such a bad
That was
slogan.
a term as well. It was used much more in hindsight than it was at the time.
Yeah, sure.
It's not like people were, let's go. The Attitude Era continues this Sunday.
Do you predict that 20 years from now we'll look back at this time and say, oh, you remember the new era? The new era WWE? I don't know.
Remember those times when they broke a plant?
Yeah, I miss the new era.
Well, this Raw.
I feel like a hat company should be making a phone call to the WWE.
They should be, to be honest. That's what I've thought of every time. Is I think of the fullback.
Yeah, fullback.
Well, the new era fullback hats. That's what I think of.
Oh, okay.
What are you thinking of?
Well, I've never heard. I don't know. Never mind.
That's what they would call them.
Sure.
Look it up.
I'm sure you're right.
Well, out came, the icon of the new era, Chris Jericho, came out for the highlight reel, and they recapped Mitch the Plant from last week and his untimely demise. I thought that this was something that was a total joke last Monday, and this angle really should not have been. And it was evident on SmackDown when Chris Jericho came out and really emphasized the fact that he broke this object over Ambrose's head. He missed SmackDown to sell the angle. He said on SmackDown, this is not funny. This is not some joke. And that's how the announcers treated this last Monday. It was totally played for comedy, even though, yes, it was completely stupid that it was this plant, but it ended in a serious injury.
Yeah.
And I think the announcers totally blew it last Monday. When you think of one of the most famous tag team breakups, what do you think of?
The Rockers.
In a completely stupid setting of a barbershop. And had Bobby Heenan just resorted to haircut jokes when he got thrown through the glass, that would have been a totally stupid angle. But it's not remembered as a stupid one. But last week, I thought the announcers totally blew that angle, and you didn't have any kind of seriousness attached to it.
You're right. In their defense, though, it was a potted plan. You know, how serious could you really have taken it? I mean, I feel like the internet themselves were...
It was broken over his head.
I know. But it was...
That was when the comedy should have ended.
It was a potted plant named Mitch. I know what you're saying. They could have done something to maybe try to sell it more seriously, but I feel
then don't do such a big angle because it's a waste of an angle then.
Well, I mean, you see how they were kind of highlighting it and recapping it here. They were kind of recapping how the internet responded to it by making all these funny memes. So the internet themselves were kind of treating it like a funny joke.
So he's out, and the announcers, though, I thought here did give it a much more serious tone here. And Jericho goes over all the injuries that Ambrose has sustained, including a bulging disc. from the plant injury, and he shows the remnants of Mitch on this stool.
Rotted and like all dried up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And said that Dean underestimated the, quote, veritable tsunami that is Chris Jericho.
Okay.
T-shirt coming soon. And says that he left Ambrose, much like Mitch, a shattered mess of dust, dirt, and bones, meaning that Mitch was a human.
Dust, dirt, and bones, huh?
The bones of Mitch. And then called the people Slovian barbarians. He was really running the gamut here of terms. And then we went through the tweets that Wei mentioned of all the people making in memory of comments towards Mitch last week. And this led to a chant of Mitch.
Yeah, I know. I thought them showing off all the social media stuff was a good, subtle way of them kind of showing off their social media presence without being off-putting like they would just, normally be.
I think there were a few instances tonight of the WWE trying to work in their very obnoxious way of hammering things home in a more digestible manner, which we'll get into. They had a few instances of this. Jericho says there was nothing funny about what happened to Ambrose, and then said that Mitch had more charisma and worth to the WWE than Ambrose, stating he could put Mitch together and sell him for $12 at a flea market and be worth more than Ambrose. And the people relate to Ambrose because they are losers, and he is the Halley's Comet of the WWE and only comes around once every 76 years. This level of talent. He is interrupted by Big Cass, who comes out and states that if Jericho was a gift, then he wants the receipt to return it, and that the new era has arrived. And they have sent a warning. He has arrived and tells Jericho to get out of his way or he'll run through him. And Jericho tells him to go check on Enzo Annoying and says in the new era, they don't run, they fight. And he towers over Chris Jericho. Really emphasizing the height of Cass. And Jericho then takes off his jacket, goes to walk off, and Cass does the soft deal. And then Jericho runs back, takes a big boot off the apron to the floor. And that was the opening segment. And then it would continue after the break backstage where Jericho is grabbing at his eye. He complains to Stephanie that the talent in the new era don't show any respect. And Shane is drunk with power. Stephanie's the smarter one. And that Shane... then Stephanie defends Shane, stating he's doing the right thing and ends up making a match for the main event tonight with Chris Jericho and Big Cass, and warns Jericho not to drive a wedge between Shane and her.
Stephanie also did the soft line, and man, how do you
wait till Shane has to do it?
I would prefer to Shane to do it over Steph, because to hear Steph like do any cool catchphrase like she like when the New Day was really getting hot and she started doing a lot of their stuff.
It's your mom.
Oh my God!
Finding out what the coolest trend is.
There's no way. Like it's like, yeah, exactly. It's like your mom doing Gangnam Style or like the Macarena. You know what I mean? Like whoever thought the Macarena was cool. Like I'm sure at one point it was like, wow, this hip new thing.
Linda was probably doing it like a mad woman.
It gets to the point where your grandmother's doing it, and that's how this felt like with Stephanie. Doing the soft line, whatever.
But interesting the way they position this, where they put Cass and Jericho, albeit it was a setup for an angle, but that was the hook for the show, was not the elimination match with your main event guys. It was Cass being put into a big role, and it seems pretty evident. I think, obviously, Enzo, they don't know when he's coming back, but I'm not so sure that they're going to just necessarily go back to this team. I think they have a lot of big ideas for Cass.
Definitely. And, I mean, it kind of really... goes back to the characterization of Vince McMahon that I think we all have an opinion of, as internet wrestling fans or people like, just kind of privy to some of the backstage opinions of what a Vince McMahon might look like. He sees a big, tall guy, obviously sees much more potential in him as a single star than, in somebody in a mid-card tag team act. And I think that's really unfortunate. I mean, you and I are about to review the Dudley Boys DVD where the Dudleys talk about their breakup in 2002 and how... it was ultimately a real kind of premature way to do it where the both of them didn't really find as much success.
The high point of the breakup was just the shock of the announcement.
Yeah, and granted, this is a completely different situation. However, I still definitely feel like these two have much more to accomplish as a tag team first, and I would hate to see them being broken up.
Well, Enzo, for as great a talker as he is, I think he would really flounder on his own.
I do as well, simply based on size. I mean, you have a great talker, but what? Like you can be a great talker, but as a cruiserweight, you can only go so far, and which is where I think he'll be, unfortunately. So I hope that they continue with the two of them as a tag team. But judging from how they were doing tonight, I feel like they have a lot more position for a Big Cass.
Our first match was Dolph Ziggler against Baron Corbin, the much-anticipated rematch from Payback, where Ziggler beat him. Barrett cuts an insert promo. He is alerting us he is not part of the new era. He calls it the Baron Corbin era, which maybe that's what we'll be talking about 20 years from now.
Yeah.
The Baron Corbin era,
Corbin
BCE.
era. Yeah.
And doesn't give a damn about anyone in this world. Not one. Day after Mother's Day, this jerk.
I didn't really watch too much of this guy in NXT, but did he kind of have a similar character?
Yes.
Because they're really trying to hit hard the fact that this guy is the lone wolf. The lone wolf. Yeah, exactly.
Wait till he has to howl.
Every character, once they kind of make it to the WWE, but by and large, they're kind of reduced to their one characteristic. What are you about? What's your one line? And this guy, he's the lone wolf. And that's, them trying to sell that today.
They fight on the floor. Corbin's on the barricade and gets drop-kicked. They got back into the ring. Corbin goes to throw Ziggler into the ropes, and Ziggler's just dead weight and falls down, but he's playing possum and hits him with the Famouser. Then Corbin comes back with the deep six with multiple rotations, and Ziggler kicks out of that the audience got into. Corbin then kicked out of a roll-up, hit Ziggler with snake eyes in the corner, and hit the end of days. Clean victory, and this probably should have been the result at Payback, because I thought the only reason they did the Ziggler win was to prolong this feud, and I don't need to see this again.
Yeah, I don't either. This felt like the blow-off, and I think it should have been.
But now you've beaten Corbin in the meantime.
Yeah, you
on
have.
A pre-show. It was an unnecessary loss to me.
Maybe they're hoping for the fact that more people saw this, and this left more of a lasting impression than the other one. I thought it was a decent showcase for Baron Corbin. I think the intent at this point is to just kind of get him some airtime, get the crowd familiar with his finishers, which both look good with the Ziggler selling.
Each and every week, it's your chance to win a t-shirt from ProWrestlingTees.com. Simply answer the trivia question and tweet @LawRadio for your chance to win each and every Thursday. Got a graphic, the WWE Network, a 90% satisfaction rate, which they note is better than HBO and Hulu. I don't know if they actually performed this new survey, because this was the identical graphic, the same company, from July of 2014 with the identical satisfaction rate.
Okay.
So this might have just been a repeat of a study they did 2 years ago. Shane is backstage on his phone when Charlotte and Ric Flair walk in, and Ric just puts over Shane in the greatest move in WrestleMania history this year.
I love that. Sorry, go ahead. Finish.
Oh, that was it.
Well, I love the fact that Ric was basically kissing up to Shane the exact same way that he was kissing up to Stephanie last week.
Yes.
And, I think Flair has been great as a heel accessory to Charlotte. And then Flair even sneaks in like these little things, like a little fist bump to Shane that just come across so goofy and hilarious.
Charlotte and Ric do not think it is fair that he is banned from ringside at Extreme Rules, and they want to have Shane overthrow Stephanie's decision. And Shane says, no, Charlotte has to stand on her own, and it's not going to be just at Extreme Rules. She'll also be without Ric Flair for her match with Paige tonight. And in the background, we see the photo of Vince McMahon and the young Shane, which is now there prominently on a stand.
They should make a shirt of that.
Yes, too. Then we go to JoJo, who was very busy. She was the ring announcer and the backstage interviewer tonight.
Wow.
So she was with Styles, Gallows, and Anderson. And tonight, it's the family against the club, which that is not just an off-the-top term. That is now the name of these three, the club.
The club.
Which was, again, hit over the head of how many times.
Until I see it on a T-shirt or like as a graphic on the actual show, I don't know if it'll be official, but they did refer to themselves as that multiple times tonight.
Maybe they'll have the club with a big blank area in between the and club.
The blank club?
Yes. Or they'll just have like a target. So
they might as well. I mean, the entire look I mean, they're basically telling you this is the Bullet Club without actually saying it.
I think it's so lame that they're going with that name.
The club is pretty lame. I mean, the something club, I feel like you could sell a bit more. The club is the tool you use to lock up your car.
I thought of that, and yeah, these three going out for a night on the town.
The club.
Does not suit
The
to me
nightclub.
Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows' nightlife.
We're going to make you wait in line.
Styles says he had the chance to obliterate Roman last week with a chair, but he took the high road, and in turn, Reigns put him through an announce desk. He will not hesitate to take him out the next time it presents itself, and says tonight the club is officially back together again. This is an awful name.
A night
I
at the
hate it.
Roxbury. That's what these guys are.
We have a big match coming up on SmackDown Thursday night. It is going to be Gorgeous Truth against Gold Dango, which they actually announced last week on SmackDown. So this is going to get more promotion than 95% of SmackDown matches. A whole week to build up this big tag showdown. Fandango took on R-Truth to set up this big SmackDown affair. R-Truth also has new blonde tips on his hair, updating his look. Fandango drop kicks and dances. Goldust and Breeze get on the apron. Truth knocks into the rope, sending his teammate Tyler Breeze off the ropes, and then hits the what's up to pin Fandango in 2:13, and JBL says it'll be like the Funks and Briscoes this week on SmackDown.
Yeah, right.
Can't wait.
I mean, it's just comedy, but I do love the name Gold Dango. Almost enough for me to want to see them continue doing this. Gold Dango.
Well, they're preying on people like you. Keep this alive. Miz, Owens, Cesaro, Maurice are backstage with Shane and Stephanie, and they're all yelling. Stephanie says it's going to be a triple threat at Extreme Rules when Sami Zayn, who was eavesdropping outside, walks in and says that, wait a minute, when I picked up the title last week, all the people cheered, so clearly they want me to be champion. And Owens shoots this down, saying he destroyed him at Payback, trying to keep the value of wins and losses above water here. And Sami says he just wants a match to prove that he belongs in this match with The Miz tonight, and they agree to make it, and if Zayn wins, they will make it a four-way. And then Stephanie excuses everyone from class, and then Shane and Stephanie agree that they both handled that really well. Shane smiles at Stephanie, and then Stephanie walks off, and Shane just stares at her walking off. This is our summer romance.
There definitely was some weird sexual tension that they were trying to hint at between Stephanie and Shane. Probably unintentional, but I'm sure you got that impression watching it. So did
Everyone
I.
is.
And it was really weird and kind of creepy.
Because they're booking this like these two that hate each other, but they're now getting along.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just so weird.
So weird.
It totally is like that, like your summer comedy where it's like the two, it's like the summer fling, and they're going to get together in the end.
It is totally a romantic comedy.
That's it.
But I don't think I've ever seen an incest romantic comedy before. This would be a first for wrestling, I think. No, it's not.
No, it's not.
Burchill, Paul Burchill, wasn't.
They were going to go in
incest?
that direction with them. They also pitched the idea of Ken and Ryan Shamrock at the time.
Oh, right.
So,
Okay.
I mean, incest has always
they're
been.
not going to do that right here. It's just a bit of unintentional, weirdness that I think everybody's reading into.
Catch all of our podcasts daily up at FightNetwork.com. You can also subscribe to Live Audio Wrestling on iTunes and listen through the free Stitcher app. Charlotte and Paige were next. Non-title match. Natalya was on commentary and clarifies that she did not quit at Payback. Paige knocks her off the apron and does the Flair strut, and then Charlotte attacks and throws her against the apron. Paige lands a kick to the face back in the ring, getting a 2 count, hits a superplex. Then Charlotte used this awful-looking small package for a 2 count on Paige. And then Charlotte gets the rope during a PTO attempt. Natalya climbs onto the apron and distracts Charlotte, leads to a fall-away slam by Paige, and Rick comes down to ringside to confront Natalya. And this prompts Shane, with his music, to bring down officials to escort Rick out. And this allows Paige to through the distraction to roll up Charlotte and pin her.
I don't know what a supposed GM who is out there trying to combat distractions in the match is doing coming out with his music. Why did Shane have his theme music playing for this?
He's got to have that reaction when he comes out. He can't just come out cold.
He's coming out to try to stop Ric Flair from distracting the match to make a pure, clean fight.
He should be the opposite of the Dudley Boys in ECW. His entrance music should be the cheers and the love from the audience.
Yes,
and not
exactly,
and not this theme music.
Yeah.
So, Paige wins. I'm never a big fan of these. Like, we're building up the match, so let's have people lose on the way to the big match.
This happened a lot
on this show. Yes,
it happened for like 3 or 4 of the matches that they were building to, and I don't mind it once in a while. Like for this in particular, I felt like you could have used this as an excuse to set up Paige as your next challenger for the title. I think it's kind of fine, but if you do it so often, it's
I guarantee you this win will never be referenced ever again. And I don't think people value the win in any kind of way. I think it didn't bother me so much in this one as it did the Rusev match, but it was just the same line of thinking in both. The Miz and Sami Zayn was next, another non-title match, so you knew where this one was going. Zayn got the early advantage, went for a dive, and Maurice pulled Miz out of the way, and then Zayn went to the floor, hit a moonsault off the barricade, knocking down Miz. Zayn drops him on the barricade, and then Maurice starts yelling at Zayn, and I thought these two were just going to scream at one another in French.
Yeah, I did too.
They did. That was a missed opportunity.
Were they speaking French? They weren't, right? Was she speaking French?
No, I don't think so.
I wonder if they're trying to, if they would distance the babyface from speaking French.
Oh, probably. And in the world of WWE, that's a heel tactic to be French.
Yeah.
Remember that was Vince's thinking. They said back in the day that if you're from Canada, that's where a villain comes from.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
that's why they were on that kick to change Benoit and Jericho's hometowns. They changed them.
When was the last time they had a French-speaking babyface?
A French-speaking babyface?
Yeah, do you remember that?
Oh, you'd have to go back. I mean, in terms of they've had French baby faces, but not cutting French promos.
But like a baby face that would freely speak French, as a way to kind of, I don't know, get over with a French audience in Montreal, for instance.
They haven't had a baby face that I can recall that was
Pat LaPrade, maybe.
Yes, we could do our research. The match continued. They teased a count out with Zayn. He beat the count back in. There were repeated stomps in the corner. Lots of boos here for the Miz. And then Miz drop kicked the knee of Miz, applied the figure 4, made his way to the rope.
Zayn, you mean? He drop kicked.
Yes, sorry, drop kicked Zayn in the knee and applied the figure 4. Zayn got to the rope, and then Zayn eventually caught Miz in the corner, exploder suplex, and then a haluva kick. And Zayn pinned Miz, so it's now a 4-way. At Extreme Rules, as everyone anticipated.
They jobbed Zayn, unfortunately, last time. But, they needed some excuse to get him back into the match, which I don't hate, Like, the crowd wants to see him have another chance, so.
Renee was with Becky Lynch backstage, and they showed last week's match with Emma, where she poked Becky in the eye, stemming from her eye injury, her pre-existing eye injury suffered at WrestleMania. And she claims this was intentional by Emma, who then walks into the shot and calls Becky inferior and says what Becky needs is eyes in the back of her head, and that leads to Dana Brooke attacking Becky from behind, pats her on the head, and they call themselves E&D, Emma and Dana.
So this was Dana Brooke's debut.
What a debut this was, a backstage attack.
It's pretty, standard. I wouldn't say it was bad.
It was just there. I don't think this was I don't think you would have. If I were to tell you at the end of Raw, name me the 5 things that happened on Raw, I don't think people would even remember this.
If somebody were to ask you which female wrestler debuted on Raw tonight,
I'd have to look it up. I'd have to look it up for sure.
What if you had some incentive?
Some incentive. Well, maybe that would prompt me to.
Okay.
But you'd have to write it out for me.
Anyway,
There's been a lot of call-ups.
Yeah.
I think the fact that look where we are. Okay, a month after Apollo Crews has been on the roster. I mean, this guy is already just vanished.
But I wouldn't say that Apollo Crews. I would say that for somebody like a Tyler Breeze, okay? But I wouldn't say that for Apollo Crews. Apollo Crews to me seems like somebody they just kind of have sitting back while you let these other guys get established on TV, and then eventually maybe and when the time is right, you get Apollo Crews at this point now a bit more established, having worked a few more house shows, a few more TVs. That's when you kind of really give him the real push, in my opinion.
Yeah, we'll see how how Dana Brooke. I think it's just you look at the roster and where it is. I think it's just you're bringing up so many new faces at this point, and I don't think they've done a good job with some of the guys they've brought up. But I don't think it's been hardly a home run for everybody.
With the women, though, it's sort of a different story. I mean, she's kind of the only diva woman, female wrestler. That term is abolished now. She's the only female wrestler that they brought up since WrestleMania.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, look at this show and the amount of. I mean, Becky and Emma were having this feud, and then they were off television for how long? It seems like. As much as they've added more emphasis, it still feels like there's still the one title program, and those are the women that get focused. So we'll see if they make time here because they have done this angle, and we'll see what they follow up with. They showed Darren Young's video with Bob Backlund. This was the same video they aired last week on SmackDown.
I enjoyed this. I mean, I think it's such an odd pairing that these two might actually have some good chemistry together as that kind of odd couple dynamic. And I think Bob Backlund, playing that same crazy Uncle Bob Backlund is very entertaining on TV. This seems to be some type of Donald Trump, parody. So I don't know where they're going to go with it. And I don't know how it'll really play off with Darren Young as a wrestler. But, I mean, I'll give it a chance.
You can check out the Law's YouTube channel at youtube.com/liveaudiowrestling. Subscribe for all of your free videos, including Ask Away, interviews, and much more. Xavier Woods was on the set of Up, Up, Down, Down with Big E, Sasha, and Kofi, and their guest is Dolph Ziggler, who shows up with a Pizza Hut box, and he's got pizza, applewood smoked bacon, and they all eat the pizza, and Ziggler doesn't get a piece. Now this, I will say, let us compare to that god-awful placement they did with, who was it, Natalia and
Subway.
The Subway ad.
Yeah.
I thought this was at least an attempt to make this very forced promotional piece a little more natural by at least promoting this video series and putting some guys in there that can actually have some fun with it. I thought that they tried here.
If you're saying it was better than the Natalia Subway ad, then yes, I totally agree with you. It was 100 times better. Doesn't make it good, though, To me, it almost felt like they sold out Up, Up, Down, Down. A wonderfully organic, real YouTube show that, from all accounts was just created by Austin Creed, and whoever his friends are backstage, and it became a big hit on their own without any promotion from the WWE. Now that I guess somebody decides that, hey, we can make money off of this, let's turn it into a Pizza Hut ad.
Oh, come on, hippie.
Oh, come on. Like, this is just, I don't know, man. I'm glad the guy got some promotion, sure, why not? But it seemed like them taking something that was wonderfully organic and turning into a big commercial.
All right, what was bigger, okay? The amount of pizza Dolph Ziggler got to eat, or the amount of screen time Sasha Banks got tonight as compared to every Raw since WrestleMania?
Again, I see Sasha, not somebody that they've forgotten about, but as somebody just kind of sitting behind right now while the other, maybe it is a problem where they don't have enough room for the women right now.
Well, there you have it. You've just now introduced a new woman, and are they not going to have time? Like, if you don't, we'll see. I don't want to condemn calling up Dana Brooke, but of all the people that I look at, of certain call-ups, there's many that you can criticize. Were these people ready, like a Cruz or a Baron Corbin? And I'd put Dana Brooke into one that I'm not sold on is going to be a giant hit. And more so just if they're going to have an idea for her 4 weeks from now.
At the same time, John, I don't necessarily think time off of TV is really all that bad for a lot of performers. I feel like certain performers don't need to be on every single week.
Not some, but ones like, for instance, Apollo Crews, to me, he's just flatlined. I don't think there's any kind of momentum behind this guy, and to me, there's a big difference between someone that it's special when they show up and others where it's just they're forgotten about. There isn't that demand. I don't think anyone was criticizing Apollo Crews not being on this show.
He's just sort of doing like your 80s squash matches right now, and I think when the time comes, he'll be in a real program with an actual performer, and I think that's when you'll start to see what this guy's really about.
Zack Ryder meets with Shane McMahon backstage and talks about it being a dream come true when he won the title at WrestleMania. He says he wants to be a player here. And Kevin Owens interrupts and says the new era is more about handing out title chances to whiny people that beg, such as Sami Zayn, who shouldn't even be a factor after Payback. Ryder says that he beat Owens at WrestleMania, and Owens responds, "Why do you exist? Are you just pitching a new internet show?" And Shane makes a match between Ryder and Owens, where if Ryder wins, he will get Owens' spot in the Fatal 4-Way at Extreme Rules. Roman Reigns is backstage with the Usos. Tom Phillips interviews them and asks him about the club and says, if you attack one of us, that we all fight back, and tonight is an elimination match. And he explains that they are going to eliminate Gallows and Anderson, and then he will eliminate AJ Styles. I don't know what I learned in this promo, other than Roman Reigns explaining an elimination match and the concept behind it.
He wants to eliminate AJ last.
Okay. The Lucha Dragons come out. Lana introduces Rusev, who runs out, jumps in the air, and poses, and has the word brute written across his trunks. And before this, we got highlights, and I use that term loosely, of a Facebook interview involving Tom Phillips and Kalisto that sounded so captivating. Kalisto is ready, and he has a strong heart.
Okay, well, it was an improvement from last week with Kalisto, okay? Because last week we saw Kalisto on guest commentary, where he performed horribly. And that was, more of a live improvised environment. This Facebook interview, he at least came across much better. Granted, it was much of the kind of hockey player type of interview, but he sounded convincing and at least sounded clear. And that it was an improvement over last week.
Well, if I was scrolling down Facebook and saw this, I would not be clicking on the volume. Catch all of our podcasts daily up at FightNetwork.com. You can also subscribe to Live Audio Wrestling on iTunes and listen through the free Stitcher app. Rusev and Sin Cara had their match. It was all Rusev, and then Sin Cara fought back, hit a tornado DDT, mounted some offense. Rusev hit a super kick, and then Lana got on the apron. This distracted the referee and allowed Kalisto to hit Rusev with an enziguri off the apron, and Sin Cara rolled up Rusev in 346. This one was just dumb.
Yeah, like you said, the Paige one I could kind of buy because she could be potentially a title contender. The Sin Cara one, I don't get at all. I don't know what benefit there is to this.
It's just like I don't think people have nearly the surprise pop of just some loss out of nowhere. And Rusev is a guy that I think this guy is in a rebuilding phase at this point. This is the last thing he needs. And I think if we talked about Payback, just such a simple build-up to so many of these programs. And to me, Rusev just killing guys and then going after Kalisto. Simple.
I hate to make a comparison to MMA, but, I mean, say Conor, we all thought Conor might have – it was rumored that he was going to fight George St. Pierre if he had beaten Nate Diaz. He lost to Nate Diaz. It only makes me want to see Conor fight Nate Diaz again, to get that win back. And I've forgotten about the real money match, which is George St. Pierre. So,
well, imagine if Dennis Seaver knocked out Conor McGregor and then Conor was still going to challenge for the featherweight title in his next fight.
Even if Aldo was like in the crowd distracting him.
Which Aldo was. Yeah. And then it was McGregor who beat him and got into his face.
And so if Dennis Seaver had won that match, I wouldn't have wanted to see the Aldo match after that.
No, and you wouldn't have wanted to see the eventual fight of Dennis Seaver, and it would have been Chad Mendez.
That would have been awful.
Man, UFC 189. 5,000 buys. Yeah. Another Cologne spot. They're going to be called the Shining Stars, and they're coming next week. So more television.
They have a name now, at least.
Oh, boy. I think they will be the Fading Stars very quick with this character development. The elimination match. The Family against the Club. Now I'm just thinking of car protection. Jay was the first elimination. He was taken out after he got knocked by Carl on the Gallows on the floor, and then Carl rolled him up and grabbed the tights. They teased Reigns and Styles, and then it led to Styles tagging Gallows. Reigns knocked Anderson and Styles off the apron. They got the advantage on Jimmy. Carl was taunting him and then got caught with a small package, and Carl was eliminated. Jimmy then got eliminated during the commercial break from a phenomenal forearm. Reigns and Gallows then trade strikes. There was a Superman punch, and Gallows is eliminated. So we're down to Styles and Reigns, and they go to the crowd really picked up for these two. I mean, these two really do buy these two as your main event program. They were chanting back and forth. It wasn't even a negative response for Roman. They were cheering both guys.
It was a much more pro-Roman Reigns crowd tonight.
Now, this is Omaha, man. They love their Reigns. They fight on the floor. They clear the announce desk. Reigns tosses a chair away, and then Anderson returns with Gallows. They attack him with a chair for the DQ, and then the Usos run down to make the save. Anderson and Gallows toss them to the floor. Reigns spears both men, and then it's a standoff. Styles teases a Styles clash onto the chair, but Reigns back body drops him, and then Styles just stands on the apron. Reigns kicks the chair towards Styles to use it, and Styles kicks it back at Reigns, and then he springboards across the ring and then just ducks under to the floor and leaves. So this was just a backdrop to build up this main event for Extreme Rules, and I think this is a program that is really connecting well, and their second pay-per-view, it by no means feels stale in any way, and I don't even know if they might prolong it beyond the next pay-per-view.
I think they will. I definitely think they have enough legs to let this go till the next one, which is what, the TLC?
Money in the Bank.
Money in the Bank. Okay, well, I think...
Which is a good pay-per-view because you don't have... I mean, it's kind of like a lame duck championship match, really, because and no contender is really built up, and so many of the key guys will be in the ladder match.
It was very noticeable tonight. I felt that, I feel like this entire time they've kind of been pushing AJ as sort of the confused babyface who is angry yet not really a heel. But tonight I felt like he was pushed as more of a straightforward heel. He was the one with the 2-on-1 advantage in the match at the end. He even cut a bit of a heelish promo. And he was
tagged out when it was him and Reigns in together.
Teased attacking the dude with the chair first, and he ran away from the fight. So I really liked what they did last week, where they managed to build both guys in sort of a way that via misunderstanding, so that both kept their kind of babyface personas, but hating each other even more at the same time, kind of like Captain America and Iron Man.
Oh, yeah. It's a civil war on Raw.
But tonight it seemed like they're just kind of going the much more traditional route and turning AJ as an actual heel, which I'm not as big of a fan of.
Zack Ryder and Kevin Owens was next. Crowd just never got into this. Maybe it was following the elimination match, but Owens missed with a cannonball. Ryder went for the broski boot, and Owens bailed to the floor. Ryder hit a top rope elbow drop, and then Owens recovered, hoisted him in the air for the power bomb. 4 minutes. And Owens won.
The crowd was noticeably much quieter from this point on. It felt like the family and the club were definitely the peaks of the show.
They showed the Enzo injury from Payback, and Cole just says he's recovering from a concussion. Renee is with Big Cass backstage and asks him about the new era and says this is the biggest match of his career tonight, dedicates it to Enzo, and is doing all of this for both of them, and he'll be the only one left standing in the room.
I wonder if for this segment they... did the Andre trick with the apple box underneath the Cass to make him look even taller? Because he looked abnormally tall here compared to Renee. He looked like...
Yes, this is not a 7-foot individual.
No, this guy looked... Oh, man, like the Big Show doesn't look this tall compared to Renee. So I'm...
Well, they're being smart in who they are putting him next to as well to really accentuate
Jericho,
the height.
Definitely, yeah. But, like, clearly, they're... Baron Corbin is the lone wolf. Big Cass is tall. And they really want you to know that. He's tall. They want you to know that so badly that in the graphics going to break, they have Big Cass's face, and they had Jericho positioned lower to give him more headroom to make it look like Jericho is really short compared to Big Cass. Yeah. It should really be the other way around. It should be Jericho normal, and Big Cass should almost be like out of frame.
Get ready, WrestleMania 33. 33? This would be the next one. This is it, the main event.
What?
The Lone Wolf and Big Cass.
Who's taller?
This is our Cena Orton generation. The new era, represented by these two. Each and every week, it's your chance to win a t-shirt from ProWrestlingTees.com. Simply answer the trivia question and tweet @LawRadio for your chance to win each and every Thursday. Freddie Prinze Jr. did a Facebook video promoting a show that I don't even know if we'll see in Canada, and I'm not complaining. The New Day comes out. The Vaudevillains did an insert promo and called The New Day poisonous, and will turn back the page to a better day when champions were respected. And then the New Day go over the pronunciations of the Vaudevillains, asking if it's the Vaudevillains or the Vaudevillians. And we'll use the extreme power of the extreme booty as Xavier sings A Whole New World. Big E says that the bygone era that the Vaudevillains talk about was not very kind to them. And then states, for smartphone users, it's very difficult for them.
I know a lot of people like the New Day. I think they're great, but they're kind of starting to get to the point where these promos are just, they kind of feel like noise to me now. I don't know how you feel.
I still think that they are, they're an act that people get into just for the entrance. Their promos, I won't say are hit and miss. I think there's varying degrees of it, but I think they play off each other well, even when it's not the best of material, but they make up for it with their personalities. Kofi and Big E took on the Dudley Boys. Bubba yelled that Bootios get you and then yelled cross-faced, and I thought he yelled prostate, and I had to rewind.
Oh, my.
I was like, wow.
Yikes.
So anyway, he said cross-faced.
Yeah.
Big E splashed Bubba for a 2 count. Big E then came back with a belly-to-belly. Woods is playing the trombone as the Vaudevillains show up and attack Woods, and Devon murders Kofi with a lariat and pins him in 5-10, and then afterwards the Vaudevillains hit Kofi with the whirling dervish.
Yeah.
Again,
it's a show where all the champions lose.
That was it. That was tonight's theme. Champions losing, and the Dudleys don't even have a program, so it was just a loss for the sake of a loss. They also announced joining Goldango and the Gorgeous Truth on SmackDown will get Reigns against Gallows and Miz and Owens against Cesaro and Zayn. I will guarantee you on that show, Gallows will not be defeating Reigns. That will be a champion that wins his non-title match this week.
Probably.
And then our main event, Jericho comes out for his entrance. He's got his jacket on with the lights out and then gets attacked. The jacket is put on the attacker who poses, comes into the ring, and then the lights come up and it is Dean Ambrose. I thought the way they positioned this, where his head was down and then flicked up as the lights came on, I thought that was really well done. I mean, you knew who it was, but they still did it really well, and the crowd reacted to it.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good idea how they managed to basically have all this happen in the dark with the reveal coming up when the lights came up. It was really
He could have tripped. Would have ruined this because you would have seen him with the jacket falling down. Yeah. So Ambrose is wearing the jacket. Jericho's yelling that it costs $15,000 for that jacket. Ambrose starts ripping it up, pulls the wires out of the inside of the jacket. Jericho charges at the ring, and Ambrose attacks him. Jericho fights him off, takes his jacket back, and then goes to leave and runs into Big Cass, who blocks him on the floor. Jericho tells him to get out of the way, slaps Cass, and then Cass attacks Jericho, sends him back into the ring for a dirty deeds, and then Ambrose pulls out scissors.
Ouch. Uh-oh. What does that mean?
This might have been
an Sid Arn Anderson tribute.
Arn was clearly the producer of this segment, and cuts up the jacket and destroys the jacket. Will we never see this jacket ever again now?
He'll get a new one.
Get a new one.
Yeah.
So Shane and Stephanie are then watching this backstage, and Stephanie says, well, you could say it's an eye for an eye. And Shane says, or you could say a jacket for a potted plant. Oh, I'm sorry, Steph. That was such a bad joke. I was really nervous. I really like you. And this was so weird.
So weird.
This was like two high school kids that are so nervous around one another. They agree that they coexisted tonight, and Stephanie jokes that maybe we could be on an episode of Ride Along together, and Shane has to go take a phone call as Stephanie pulls the photo of Vince and Shane and stares at it and looks off. And we go back to the arena, and Jericho is still freaking out over his jacket and yelling at Dean Ambrose as we close out the show.
So clearly teasing something going on with Stephanie.
I like that tease at the end of Stephanie just looking at the photo and where things are going and not being so painfully obvious.
Yeah. Kind of like the weird, incestuous teasing aside, I'm interested in this angle. I'm interested in seeing how Stephanie will ultimately turn against Shane.
This family, they're just so weird. So that wrapped up Raw. I mean, certainly this show you can look at, they are completely behind Big Cass. I mean, this was a show that even though they didn't go ahead with the match, I was looking forward to seeing how he would do in this match with a guy the level of Chris Jericho, and you can save that. I'm sure they will do that match at some point, but this will be an interesting number to see because of the fact that that was your hook, was Big Cass in the main event. There was no tease of Ambrose showing up, so it was interesting, the placement. I thought that was the biggest takeaway of Raw, putting these guys in the main event slot and not doing the elimination and kind of doing the same finish as you would have last week with that going off the air.
There's also a basketball game going on. I don't know how much that played into it certainly took my attention away.
Well, there you go. Maybe they were saving Big Cass for the fallout of the basketball game ending, and then Big Cass would pick up all those viewers. So did you enjoy Raw?
I enjoyed Raw.
This was still a damn long show. But that's going to wrap it up for us. We will be back with a new review away coming up Wednesday at liveaudiowrestling.com, and we are here each and every Tuesday on Fight Network reviewing Raw.